Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Gaming Podcast. Once again, I am Bradley, and joining me this week is someone who decided that they was going to bet me that I could not prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that time is not a linear thing. It's Stu. How you doing, Stu?
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Yeah, I think the concept of infinity is in there somewhere as well.
So, I've got this proved, right? This would stand up in a court of law, okay? Time is not linear. So, I am 40 years old, okay? Coming out at the end of this year, in my 40th year of living, is Halo Infinite. When I was born, Donkey Kong came out for the very first time in 1981. Where, on that scale, does Halo originate? Is it closer to Halo Infinite, or is it closer to Donkey Kong?
Donkey Kong.
No, well, no. Slap bang in the middle. We have exactly the same amount of time has passed between Donkey Kong and Halo and Halo and Halo Infinite. That's just not right.
That's insane.
Not right at all. Because Donkey Kong was clearly a retro game that it was okay to get ROMs and stuff of back in 2001. You can't get Halo as a ROM in 2021, so how is the same time passed?
Yeah.
So, what I actually think, simulation theory, better than Elon Musk's simulation theory. We do live in a simulation. Someone's playing the simulation, and you know, sometimes like you just let the game like run through because everything's going smoothly, and then there's a disaster, and you go, oh, I better hit the space bar, so I pause it and then go just to playing it at normal speed so I can sort stuff out.
Oh, bugger. Sorry, there's somebody at the door. Bear with me one.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was meant to say before we started recording, gone down to see a family, so if the door goes, I have to get it.
That's fine. I'm going to use that.
Okay.
So, just to join in. See, this is what happens. His door's gone. I think that's the controller of the game, of the simulation, realised we were becoming sentient and just went and interrupted it. And I've lost my chain of thought because he's reprogrammed me. Is that what happened, Stu, do you reckon?
Yes.
Or have I spent too much time on my own?
No, I think that's absolutely what happened. I got to the door and it wasn't anybody there. It's just like a vague shape in the window, like Elon Musk. That was it.
I don't think Elon Musk is the controller.
Really?
I don't know what he is. I think he
could be.
No, there's something. No, it's you wouldn't make yourself obvious. You wouldn't make yourself stand out.
That's true, and he certainly does that.
For all the wrong reasons.
Yes.
Do you know what else sometimes stands out? But for all the right reasons, Stu.
I have no idea. Go on, tell me.
It'll be video games.
Ah, yeah.
And I'm going to a double segue this week because I dread to think what you've been playing this week.
Oh, jeez. Oh man, that physically hurt. But I'm not starting with the one that you alluded to because it'll encompass everything. But yeah, I've also been playing. So I played a load of UN Squadron that we were talking about last week.
Yeah,
and still playing it. It's so addictive. It's unbelievable. But I wanted to try out some stuff on my Dreamcast because I've got it all set up with ROMs, like we were talking about before. And this is all stuff that I've bought. Not that anybody cares, but other than stuff that wasn't ever available. And that's a kind of neat way of leading towards saying that I'm playing a game called Dolphin Blue. Now, it's a kind of game that you would never, ever work out what genre it was from the title.
It sounds like a version of Echo the Dolphin that some guy will offer you on DVD in a pub in Liverpool.
Exactly. It sounds like mucky aquatic stuff.
Yeah.
And if you had to say it was a game, you'd probably go, is it one of those weird hentai things? But no, it is not. Or at least that's what I'm telling the police. It's basically Metal Slug, but you occasionally ride a dolphin instead of a tank.
I'm in. I'm sold. Whatever that is, I'm sold.
I know, right? So what happened, well, I think I mentioned it on the podcast before, but what happened a couple of years ago was people, modders, homebrewers, realised that Atomic Wave games, that was a thing back in the sort of early, mid-2000s, they realised that they could be ported to the Dreamcast really easily because, if you may remember, you may not, but the Dreamcast was sort of based on Naomi hardware, which was an arcade format.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. And Atomic Wave came after it, and it was supposedly much more powerful, and blah, blah, blah. But actually, no, it's really easy to get them to work onto the Dreamcast. And there's a bunch of games. I think there's probably about 20 in total. There was about 5 or 6 of those I was interested in, so I made sure I got them. And one of them was Dolphin Blue. And it's by Sammy, so it's obviously, got a good pedigree there. And it's got that typical Dreamcast thing of 3D backgrounds and 2D sprites that animated. So it looks a little bit like Strider 2, which is one of my favourite games. And yeah, it's very Metal Slug. It's not as good as Metal Slug, but then what is? And also, I'm hitting a lot of slowdown. I'll have to have a go on my PCs. But anyway, it's what you'd expect, really, most of the time. There's a section. I see. I'm going to really go into the fine detail. There's a section in Shinobi 3, right, on the Mega Drive, where you are on a jet ski because it was just a bonkers game. A ninja on a jet ski. Yeah,
definitely. Definitely was one of those. Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And you kind of moved backwards and forwards, and where you were on the screen, blah, 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 and you jumped, and it was very much trying to do its own sort of physics thing with this. Dolphin Blue controls exactly like that section of that game from 1995. The whole Dolphin bits are like that, and that's fine. They're not the most exciting bits. There's regular run and gun bits when you're on foot, and there's also swimming bits when you and the dolphin are underwater. And the fact that it's got those 3 is a bit like Metal Slug in that it just mixes things up a little bit. So it doesn't alter the game massively, but it just adds a little bit of a tweak in the way that you move and how you shoot and which weapons work best. And stuff like that. And it's very, very, very simplistic. It's more simple even than Metal Slug. It's just the weapons aren't as varied. There's no real reason to not pick up a pickup, and you've just got to get the next one in turn, and there's no real strategy other than just dodge and shoot. But it looks pretty, and if you're into that kind of run and gun, it's good fun. So, yeah, it's called Dolphin Blue, and after like 15, 20 years, I finally got to play it, and it's pretty good.
So, yeah, I've just had a look at some images for it, and, yeah, I'm intrigued at that one. So, in terms of emulation now of what we've got out there, you can do it on PC, you can do it on your Vita, your Switch even, if you've got the right sort of Switch, Pandora boxes, Raspberry Pis. What will it work on?
So it will work on anything, as far as I'm aware, any Dreamcast emulator, which is great, because... there's some stuff still, like some Sega Model 2 and Model 3, I think, games that you need a very specific emulator for, and there's MAME, which only goes up to a certain age, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, no, it'll just work on anything. And I think I've tested it with the Redream, which is the premier emulator, really, for the Dreamcast, and it works perfectly with that. So if you want to play it, and you don't have a Dreamcast, then you can.
There are ways.
Very many ways.
Excellent. Yeah, and I might give that a go. Inspired by you over the past couple of weeks talking about PS1-esque looking games. First game I've been playing is a little game called Bonfire Peaks, which is a puzzle game of sorts, but it's a puzzle adventure game. And it's a voxel graphics rather than PS1 inspired, but it's in being voxel, it does look very PS1-esque. Yeah. But it's a semi-isometric type thing. It's not fully isometric. You zoom in and out, you can adjust the camera angle slightly, but it looks like it's based on an isometric voxel PS1-esque graphics. Looks beautiful. Looks absolutely beautiful. And essentially, again, story, gone out my mind, the story. I'm getting really bad of late with remembering what stories are all about. But you play this character, and he burns his belongings, and then he goes through this adventure for reasons. And this is why I don't review stuff properly anymore. Because, reasons, why not? But what you've essentially got is these little individual, most dioramic style areas that you do your puzzles in. And you move through an overworld of sorts that, again, it all looks the same to then go into these puzzles, and you kind of have to burn your belongings in each level. And it progresses as you go, and there's nice little surprises, so I'm not going to ruin any of those little surprises or mechanical twists and stuff like that go with it. But basically, it's a very deliberate puzzle game, and this is what I really like about it. So you essentially, from the start, you have to use different blocks to make your way to a fire to burn your belongings, and that's how you complete the level. And it's very deliberate in terms of you can't brute force your way through. You need to really think about where you're placing blocks, and it's very easy to put a block in somewhere that will mean you've completely screwed up and you need to start that level again. So it's one of those sort of puzzle games, and I'm trying to think of something it reminds me of, and I can't. It reminds me of something, or maybe a few different things, but I can't quite put my finger on what it actually is. Aesthetically, it's very close to, I think because of the angle on the boxes, all I'm getting is like Karushi vibes as well, even though it's nothing like Karushi. But that's the thing that sort of like really stands out to me. But it's a lot more deliberate, really slow pace. There's no rush into it. You can take your time and everything. And I meant to talk about this last week, and I just completely forgot about it. And it's just a really intriguing puzzle adventure game that really stood out to me, really unique. I'm playing it on Switch. It's available on pretty much everything, I believe. But yeah, definitely one I would suggest if you get a chance, definitely giving it a look if you like slow-paced puzzle games.
Yeah, I mean, visually it looks like The Tourist a little bit. You know, like, do you remember that one from a couple of years back?
Yeah, but The Tourist look like modern voxels. This is very much PS1 retro voxels, I would say.
Yeah, fair play.
I'm with you. This sort of aesthetic, I hope this becomes, over the next couple of years, the next big thing, you know, the next fad of retro game revivals, because visually I think it looks amazing. I think the original Metal Gear Solid on the PS1 is still one of the best looking Metal Gear Solid games, because it keeps that focus in that one sort of like layout. So it's like that, again, that almost top down way of doing it, and it works within those confines, whereas I think all later ones have gone above and beyond what they needed to do. And the restriction of the PS1 stuff, that era, works so well. And Bonfire Peaks is just another great example of that.
Yeah, what it was like in the art world. Art historians are going to start screaming at us now if there are any in the audience, which is probably quite unlikely. But to my understanding, it's like they kind of like perfected realism by the Renaissance. And then after the Renaissance, after very many years, you're like, oh, well, we've done all the perfect stuff, let's do abstract. And yeah, it's kind of like that. It's like we've kind of got to the point where we can do completely realistic graphics pretty much if we want. So why not look to the past and make abstract shapes that are lovely? Because, yeah, I agree with you, Metal Gear Solid has a really fantastic look about it. Like, you go back to it and you think, oh God, my eyes are going to bleed. But actually, it's got that...
It's aged so well.
Yeah, it's got... You know, you want it as at a higher resolution, obviously. You know,
oh, yeah.
You know, you don't want it at like 240p. But, yeah, it looks absolutely great because it can only be itself. It can't be anything else. And this one looks like it's using tilt shift, which most notably was used on that Zelda game on the Switch. What was it called?
Link's Awakening.
That's the one. Link's Awakening. Yes. Yeah, tilt shift.
It's one of the most famous Zelda games ever made.
Yeah,
you know.
Oh God, I'm terrible. I've got a real blank spot with Zelda games. I don't know why.
We're serious video game commentators.
Oh,
here.
Obviously, like doing my research and everything. It's got that tilt shift effect, which is really a really good way of making something look both realistic and unrealistic and toy-like. It's a great thing to do in a visual medium like games because it really brings you into it. So yeah, it looks good.
Actually, you mentioned the tilt shift effect. Obviously, you mentioned the Tourist earlier. The one thing I found about the Tourist is I thought they overdone the tilt shift effect on the Tourist, and it really bothered me. Not in a way of, oh my God, I hate this game. But it was just one of those things that just bothered me about it. I went, it's just too much.
Yeah.
Whereas this, they're starting to like, they've nailed how much tilt shift effect there is. It's just right.
Nice.
And it's, I say, it's in its basicness, it looks beautiful. And I believe this is under the same publishing arm as like a Monsters Expedition and Cosmic Express, that are both really good games as well. So, yeah, honestly, if you like those sort of puzzle games, you like deliberate, difficult adventure puzzle games, give this a go. And let's hope we've perfected realism. Realism's boring. Let's have fun with what our games look like.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'll buy into that, no problem. Although, Forza Horizon 5's coming out soon, and I can live with simulations or racing games looking realistic, because there's already a lot of... Why am I going off on this tangent?
Why not? Because Forza Motorsport 5, I've seen Jeff Gerstmann playing it, and...
Yeah, no, not very good.
Well, it is, that's the thing, but... It to me, I'm looking at it, and I mean, I've not played it, so I can't do it from a playing point of view, but I'm looking at it going, and it's
right.
Forza Horizon again.
Yeah, what's the point, kind of thing. Yeah,
looks lovely. Mexico looks lovely. Also, by the way, really, really good to see Mexico being used in a positive light in a video game.
Yes, definitely. It's really funny. I can't remember what it was now, because that's the theme of the episode. I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
But I was watching something the other day, American thing, and they were criticising Mexico, I think, directly, or South America.
Yeah.
And it's one of those blind spots in culture where it's still okay, particularly in America, to like be racist against people from South America. And I was like, oh God, that really hurts. Yeah, that's a really nasty thing to say. And it's just brushed off. It's still like totally okay to do it. So yeah, it's good to see that there's a positive representation of Mexico.
Yeah, I think we'll probably go. Actually, I think in a couple of weeks we'll look at a bit of a look at some of the racing and driving games that are out and about, because you've got the uber realistics looking ones mixed with, I think, some absolutely brilliant retro revival style games, as in sort of like Art of Rally, Circuit Superstars and things like that. And I think that's a much wider discussion to have in a couple of episodes' time. Yeah,
fair play. I will just very, very briefly say the reason why I don't mind realism in racing games is because they're kind of, in the modern world, they've got this very sort of X Games thing around them where they've got, fireworks in the real world. I mean, fireworks and flags and all of this pageantry that makes it look unreal anyway.
Yeah.
So you can copy that and be realistic, and it still looks fantastical. So that's one.
Yes.
And two, the specific detail on the road and the rain and all the weather effects can give you information. So the more realistic it is, the better. So that's just to say, I absolutely love abstract games. Racing games is one of the areas where I'm happy for there to be realism.
Yes, so I'm not dismissing those one item, because I do like them. Apart from Dirt 5, of course, because that's just boring and dull and
yeah.
How did they mess that up so badly? We're not spending another half hour on Dirt 5.
No,
Dirt 5 has had much more airtime than it needs on this podcast for some bizarre reason.
I know, that was just bizarre, completely weird.
Yeah,
but there you go.
So, what's next, Stu?
Well, this week I thought, it's time to play and then judge Dread. Oh, see what I did there.
Oh, nice. And you thought mine was painful.
I know. I must have wounded your soul, that one. But yeah, I've got Metroid Dread. And so I went into this definitely buying it, because I mean, it's one of those kind of franchises that, because it's got a really long history and lots of prestige, you get a lot of armchair commentators, which is, of course, not me, having an opinion on it and going and gatekeeping for you whether it's a proper Metroid game or whether it's a Metroidvania or whether it's as good as Super or whether it's like Prime with its locations and all this stuff. And I'm kind of like, when every time somebody mentions one of the games in the series, I'm like, I really like that. And then they go, oh yeah, but that's considered not very good. And I'm like, I like that one as well. And there's this like, oh, is Metroid Fusion any good? Yeah, it's great. Oh, the Samus Returns, is that... Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So, in a way, I'm a terrible person for reviewing Metroid Dread, but in a way, I'm a really good person to review it because I like them all, and I think they've all got positives. Even Other M, which has some absolutely dreadful design choices in it. But the core of the game is all right. Anyway, all that being said, so I went into it kind of like, okay, I like all the games. That doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily like this. It might be a bit crap. And I didn't really have any bias towards it, and I hadn't really watched many videos because you don't want to spoil, Metroid games for yourself at all because exploration's the entire point. So went into it with open eyes, and the first sort of hour and a half is fine. It's kind of like, oh yeah, it's okay, and it's building up your powers, and you're like, right, well, it's one of those games you can't make any judgment really on anything like design or the interactions or the way the environments are mapped out or the sound or anything until you kind of start getting a few more bits of the puzzle. And the bits of the puzzle are the abilities. And after a certain boss, which is not that long in, as I say, an hour to an hour and a half, it goes, right, okay, training wheels are off, you've got these sets of kit, off you go, and the game just goes whoosh and just completely opens up in terms of its quality, its scope, and its style, and it turns into a really amazing adventure game. And people will go back and forth all over it, because they do with Metroid stuff, but it's just a really, really excellent game. It's got a massive sense of presence. It uses the width of the screen, that 16:9 ratio. It uses it really, really well, and the abilities that you get have enough variety from previous games, but great callbacks. And it does that thing of, there are things that are available to you and things that aren't, and things that become unlockable and that aren't. And there are some areas that are surprisingly low tech. So you think, oh, I'm really going to need to have such and such an ability to do something in this. And then you actually realise, no, I've already got the tool set to do that, but I hadn't, manipulated Samus in that way before. So the more and more I played it, the more and more impressed I became. And I'm about, somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of the way through. Like, I'm way through it. I think I've opened up, loads of the map. And, so far, it's right. I mean, I won't say it's my game of the year so far because it's early days, but it's definitely going to be in the running.
Yeah, I've got this too, and I feel like I'm about to sort of go against what you've just said, but honestly, I'm not. I'm not at all. I've only played probably about half hour of it so far, because we'll come to that, why I've only played half hour of this. In a little while it'll become very obvious, but I've only played about half hour, and I've put it to the side because I want to give it my full attention. It's, even from the opening half an hour, it's a Metroid-arse Metroid game.
Yeah,
that's what it is. And I've checked some of the reaction online to it, and there's people sort of like going, like, comparing it to Dark Souls, like people, like younger people comparing it to Dark Souls and saying it's been inspired by Dark Souls, and it's like without irony of going, well, Dark Souls is essentially a 3D Metroid, but whatever. If you want to go down that route, it's fine. And it's a Metroid game. I don't know who made the decision not to modernise it completely, but whoever made that decision, give them that person a raise. They deserve it, because they could have easily fallen into the trap of making Metroid Dread a user-friendly game that took out some of the harsher elements of the original Metroids and tried to make it easier for people to get on board with. They've not done that. It's Metroid as it should be, and even in the first half hour I can sense that.
Yeah, I was gonna, if you'd played a lot of it or a fair bit of it, I was gonna do a big spoiler section of talking about the game and like pre-warn everyone and, you know, go into the nitty-gritty, but we'll save that for, you know, weeks or months down the line. But
yes.
Without spoiling anything, what it does is, as you go through it, it does chip some of the rougher edges off. Why there is some controversy still, where there shouldn't really be. So you've got people who are playing it and they've not really played Metroid games, and they're like, you hit these enemies and the game gets too hard. And then you've got people who go, I've played all the old ones, and the traversal and the saving and the way things are hidden from you are not like the old ones. And it's like, yeah, but what it's done is it's kind of blended the best of both. So there are elements of what's displayed, you know, how things are displayed on screen, how you're signposted, where saves are placed, things like that.
Yeah.
That are still right there in the spirit of Metroid, but they knock some of the harsher edges off them.
Yeah.
Because they realise, because it's really hard in Metroid, it's like, how much do you remove of the jank from the past that is inherent to all old games, because they were just designed that way, whilst retaining the spirit of them. And I think it strikes an excellent balance of just chipping off the stuff that really isn't necessary anymore. And yeah, it just does that really, really well. But on the difficulty side, the bosses aren't hard. If you compare them to the old bosses, they are really not that hard. And the thing with, I haven't played much of the Dark Souls games, or really any of them, but
yeah,
I know enough of how difficult the regular enemies were to say it's nowhere near that hard, because I remember, like, even standard enemies in those games have, like, really high health. And, like, I played Sekiro, and, God, I spent, like, 3 or 4 hours trying to beat some bosses. Some of them I scraped through, and some that I just gave up on, you know?
Yeah.
And either looked
so,
I know I'm going on.
I think No, that's fine. I think what Metroid does is something that I think Bloodborne done really well, where the first time you encounter any kind of enemy, you're like, you know, how do I do it? And then once you've worked out and something clicks, like, you actually breeze through, or you realise you can actually ignore quite a lot of the enemies to get through to sort of like bosses. You can kind of do that in Metroid. And I think you've always been able to do that in Metroid, personally. And the early part of this seems to do that for me, where I looked at it and went, oh, what's this going to be like? Clicked with how I get rid of it. Like, there's flying bat things, whatever they are, that come at you. It was like, they hit me a few times. I was like, this is brilliant. And then I worked out, I'll just, there you go, swat them away, done. Now I can get through those really easily. I think that's what it shares with Bloodborne. Obviously, Bloodborne, what it does, and other Dark Souls, they up that somewhat to make it more, I think, artificially difficult. But they still borrow that from Metroid. The one thing I was worried about, and I've noticed with previous Metroids, is the checkpointing in older Metroids weren't the best. The checkpointing in this one that I've noticed is really good. I've come up against what I would say is my first quick time event, and I died a few times, and it sticks you back just outside the door you need to go in to trigger that. So you're only going back 20, 30 seconds at most, rather than having to go all the way back from like an earlier save point or anything like that. And I really like that, because it allowed me to retry it 3-4 times before working out what I had to do, and not going, I've got to go through all that again.
Yeah.
So yeah, really good checkpointing on it. But still, accessibility. If you want the save points to make the original game as it is, have it, but turn on accessibility for any time saving. It is important for people who need it.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, yeah, that's what I was alluding to about the checkpoints before. Yeah, they're very, very well placed.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that you're going to get sort of purists, if they might call themselves that, bemoaning, but that's ridiculous, because if you think about it, it's kind of that restriction of only having certain save points was 30% a design choice and 70% a technical limitation of the games. And it's kind of like, they built that into the play, but you don't need it. You don't need to go, oh God, I've got to run back through several corridors, shoot these doors to open them, and then that's literally all I'm doing. It'd take me 30 seconds to get back to this boss, or a minute or more,
Yeah.
And knocking those edges off it was a really good choice. And I think it also, I think this is subtle, and I'd have to go back to the specific games, but there was a lot of crossover, obviously, because of the Metroidvania title with Castlevanias from Symphony of the Night onwards. But what I think they've done well here as well, and this has been a more recent Metroid trend, but they've reduced the number of knockbacks characters.
Yeah.
So there's some that cause knockback, but they tend to be higher level enemies. Whereas in Symphony of the Night and some of the other ones, you got knocked back off everything. It did make some corridors totally boring because it was just frustrating until you were really high level. And even then, you're like, high level, it doesn't do any damage to you, but it still knocks you back and it ruins the flow. They've got that right as well.
Yeah.
So it's like knockback is a feature of powerful or awkward enemies. It's not just a standard feature.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the only game Mercury Steam have ever done that's got it all right, got it all correct, and it flows properly. It's probably because of a lot of Nintendo influence, but you can still feel their footprint on it as well. They do some brilliant design things, like Samus's like her appearance, her movement. It erases a lot of the problems from like Other M and some of the influence from that. So she feels cool again, and she feels tough, and indomitable, and just that physical presence of her, non-sexualized, very strong, but afraid when she meets something that's much more powerful than she is, and expressed in her body language. That's stuff that's been done really, really, really well in this.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more of that. It's what I found is the general reaction to this overall. It strikes me of people like have gone, this is the best Metroidvania, and we've done it with like Dead Cells and things like that, and Hollow Knight. These are the best, these are the standout. And now like Metroid's come back and has gone, you all right? Used to do this. Do you want to see what I'm like? And all the young whippersnappers. It's like you're on a five-a-side pitch. You've got a bunch of like teenagers on a five-a-side pitch, and they're like, they think they're the best feeling. And then these old guys turn up, and they're like, "Who are you?" And it's like it's Kenny Dalglish and Rush, Mulby, Bruce Grobbelaar, and Alan Hansen turning up for a five-a-side game, going, and they're going, "We'll show you how it's done, lads. We'll just show you how to do it properly." And that's what Metroid seems to be doing. It seems to come back, and everyone's gone, "Oh yeah, that's how a good Metroid game should be."
Yeah, I really hope so. Yeah, it deserves it. My takeaway from this is that it's the formula moved on properly in the way that it should from Metroid Prime, which was the last game that really set a new benchmark for the series. And to do that in 2D, ostensibly 2D, just really, really good thing, especially when it's not a first-party Nintendo title. So yeah, kudos for that. Yeah.
And it's going to be a sweet irony that this wraps up the Metroid arc, that side of it, and people are now going to clamour for more of it. So it'd be interesting to see what they do next.
Yes.
For me, Prime's a completely different arm in the Metroid series. And yeah, they've said this was to complete it all because it's 20 years in the making.
Yeah.
I reckon we'll see something else in a couple of years in that same series.
Yes, yeah. I really, just as a sidebar, really loved Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. I thought it was a fantastic game, and I think it got a lot of hassle because A, some people didn't like the Wii controls, aka Waggle. B, I think they brought out too many of that game in too short a space of time, and that created burnout, and especially 2. I think 2 came out, I want to say like 18 months or 2 years after Metroid Prime. And
about that, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was really short, and it showed it's like really similar game, and it was too soon, and that burnt people out. a little bit on the 3D franchise. But go back now, play Metroid Prime 3 if you've got the wherewithal, because its controls they presage VR so much. It's like, I bet it's a real touchstone for a lot of VR developers because it's got so much of that sort of stuff in it. Really worth a revisit if you've got the control to do it.
Yeah, I also reckon if you want to play it, wait till about March, April next year when they in the new year they will announce the Metroid Prime trilogy along with a tentative release date for Metroid Prime 4. That's happening, I reckon.
Do you think that you'll be able to? I mean, did you play Metroid Prime 3 with the?
No, I played 1 and 2.
Yeah, I don't know if they could do it with the Joy-Cons just because of the button layouts. I just don't think it would work. I think they'd really struggle.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, I think they'll probably do it anyway. Cause,
they managed to make Skyward Sword apparently a good game, so,
Well, yeah, there you go. Good point.
Yes.
So there you go. I could carry on talking about it, which just shows how much I love it. But I will stop there.
Well, I've been playing another game, and it's still not the game yet, but I've been playing another game that's going to be full of similes and metaphors and things like that as we talk about it. I've been playing Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl on the Switch.
Okay.
Now, you laugh.
Oh, yes, and I probably will again, but go on.
It's bloody good. There you go. I'm just going to come straight out and say it is bloody good. So, the only thing I can say is, sometimes you go into Home Bargains or a B&M or Poundland or something like that, and you see like what looks like an off-brand bar of chocolate or box of cereal, and you're like, well, that's clearly a fake, whatever this is. But for whatever inexplicable reason, it's got a recognisable mascot sponsorship to it at the same time.
Right.
And instead of costing £3, it costs like 79p. You get it and you go, it's actually not bad.
Yeah.
I was expecting this to taste like absolute crap, but it's not bad at all. Well, that's Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl.
Crappy cereal.
Yeah, but that you actually like. So, let me clarify a little bit. Picked this up because I thought my daughter might like it, Nickelodeon characters, and it's something different. And I got it on the Switch because that's what she mainly plays on. And there's my only mistake, by the way, is getting it on the Switch, and I will come to why in a moment. But basically, it's a love letter to Nickelodeon. An absolute love letter to Nickelodeon. So you've got characters that go back from like Ren and Stimpy. You've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, SpongeBob SquarePants, Wild Thornberrys, Hey Arnold, Rugrats, to more modern ones that I haven't got a clue who they are. No, Edith, not Teen Titans, because that's Cartoon Network. It's got all of those like old and new Nickelodeon characters in there, all lovingly recreated, and basically it's put into a Smash clone. And it's a really, really good Smash clone. It plays closer to, I want to say Brawl, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, in terms of how it feels. And honestly, it is really, really good. It's missing some characters in it, so there's no Rocco in it, which is a shame, from Rocco's Modern Lives.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I understood that reference.
Well done there. That's a Guardians in the Galaxies reference, isn't it? Guardians in the Galaxies? What?
What?
What is a Guardian? There you go, talking about off-brand. That sounds like some like dodgy, like sort of off-brand budget straight to DVD thing. Guardians in the Galaxies.
I am Grout.
Yeah. The plumber. Oh, Jesus Christ. I've lost my train of thought now. But honestly, characters, I mean, it's got one of the modern ones. I've only heard about this series because, like, my like Edith watched it. But like the Loud House, they've got like Lincoln from the Loud House in it. But he can fight like Michelangelo from the original Turtles. I think it might not be the original Turtles. So I haven't used any of the Turtles yet, but are real monsters and stuff like that. But it's just all of them. They're not. But it's on a budget, this game, so there's no voice acting for whatever reason. But it plays like there's online multiplayer, which is crap. Don't do the online. Play it locally. But the single player and the local multiplayer is absolutely sublime. It plays like Smash. And I absolutely love it. The only problem is I made a mistake in that I've got it on Switch because I don't need it on Switch because Smash Brothers exists on Switch. This is perfect for Xbox, PlayStation, PC, on any of those systems because you don't have Smash officially.
Right,
getting those on there. That is my only mistake, that I've got it on Switch where I've already got Smash. Not as good as Smash, but still a brilliant alternative. I reckon better than Brawlhalla, personally, which is the big alternative to Smash that everyone swears by. These guys have done this on a shoestring budget by the looks of it. I'm hoping it does well for them. It's getting positive reviews absolutely everywhere across the board. Give them some money, get the voice actors in, turn this into something special. Add who's missing, see what you can pull in from, get them all in there. I honestly cannot believe how good this has turned out to be.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. No, I unfortunately can't say a lot about it because I really don't like Smash Brothers. No,
that's fine. Yeah, if you don't like Smash Brothers, you're not going to like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, I played it at my mate Mike's house, the very first game. Was that on the GameCube? No, it was on the N64.
N64,
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, God, yeah, 20 years ago? And he was like, oh, there's this thing, and it's like, you can have 4 players, and it's like totally mental, and there's loads of moves. I was like, that sounds great. And then I played it, I was like, oh man, this is garbage. Oh, I hate this game. And I think that's still the same today with a lot of people, isn't it? You either like it and click with it, or you just think it's like, it's a knockout, but with complete, dumbasses.
Yeah, but if you've ever wanted Ren and Stimpy to kick Tommy from Rugrats' arse, you can do that.
Yeah, well, that's a good pull, you see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, again, some of the emissions, I reckon they're going to be there. This is going to be supported. I think this is going to have blown up more than the developers or publishers or even Nickelodeon if they've wanted this to be made. Whoever's behind this, I think this is going to blow up more than they ever dreamed it would.
Yeah.
I reckon they expect this to be around for a few weeks, get a few copies sold, and well done. Got a license going, but I think this is going to have longevity to it. It is that good.
Yeah, I think if it works, it's a really hard one to do because it's got to work on a technical level and it's got to have characters that you actually want to see fight each other. And Nintendo have got that completely up the wazoo, totally sorted out, and Nickelodeon clearly have as well. Because I don't really watch any of that stuff anymore, and I'm not saying that it isn't good because it is, but every character you mentioned, bar one, I think I knew. So the brand recognition's massively high, and they've done the clever thing of going back as well, making sure that the older characters are represented.
Yes.
So you get the mums and the dads, buying into it, and I can immediately tell talking to Mike again, Mike's wife Shell will probably want to play it because it'll remind her of her childhood, and it's just and the kids will love it. So it's clever.
And there's none of the live action characters in it. So there's no Keenan and Kel, there's no Clarissa. So you can add those into it at some point, which could be interesting if they get the licenses. An orange soda based level, a good burger based level, who knows? Spread out into, I think this is all from Nickelodeon TV, but you've got Nickelodeon films as well, and so you could, if this does grow, you've got so much to pull from. I forgot just how big a deal Nickelodeon is.
Yeah.
From early 90s to now. I forgot how big a deal it actually was. And I'm willing to bet Disney are looking at this. I'm willing to bet Cartoon Network and the likes are looking at this. And they are going, okay then, let's go for it.
Yeah.
So give it a go. 40 quid might seem a bit steep, but honestly, I think it's worth it. So, anything else from you, Stu?
I've been playing a few little bits and pieces, but nothing worth talking on. I'll mention now that I started Scarlet Nexus, but then Metroid Dread got in the way. But that's one that I really want to kind of crack on with and give a go. My early impressions of it are not great, but I have a feeling that that's more because I need to learn how it actually works properly before I make any judgment. But is
that the non-platinum style game anime thing?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've not played that either yet.
That was on my list to buy So the fact that it's on, that's one of those, the other week I was saying about, it pays for itself, Game Pass, because there will be a time when I just cane a load of them.
Yeah.
And we're at that stage now where there's just too many games on there that I want to play. So there's God, what is there? Is it called Mighty Goose, which is a shooter, run and gun, and Scarlet Nexus, and there's a few others as well, and then got Forza on the way. So some good stuff, but nothing else to go into a review style thing on.
So I've been playing a game that is going to be my game of the year for the 5th year running.
Oh my God, what could that be?
Well, I don't know if you've heard. It's a little puzzle game. I don't go on about it too often, unfortunately. So but it's called Tetris.
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 Oh, no.
Came out 1990 originally on a system called a Game Boy or a Nintendo Entertainment System, depending on which you might have got first. And there's been different variations throughout the years. You might have heard about it on that documentary about Tetris's licensing hell. Not a very well-known game or anything. But anyway, I've been playing Tetris Effect Connected on the Switch because Tetris has come home again.
Hooray.
Because, Tetris should be on a handheld. And this is Tetris Effect Connected on the Switch. And it loses absolutely nothing. My big worry with this, when I heard it announced, or after I came down from the ceiling and cleaned up my liquids, shall we say, my Randy liquids.
Oh, no, don't say that.
Randy Marsh liquids, was how will this actually perform on the Switch? And is there a reason why the Switch wasn't initially one of the main components of this being released? But it's Tetris Effect. The connected version on Switch has full crossplay and everything. Now, I would usually go, it needs progression. It needs cross progression on it as well. So you've got shared lead. I don't care. It's Tetris. I'll go again. Well, I've got to beat my score from the Xbox. I'll go and do that. And beat my score from the PlayStation version. Yeah, I've got notes of that, and I'll go and do that. That doesn't bother me one iota. And one of the things I did, it was compare. I'm visually impaired still at the moment, and I'll come to my one major issue with this, actually, that I do hope they sort. But I'm visually impaired with this at the moment, and I thought, right, let's see how I'm doing speed-wise. So I went on to sprint, and I've clocked in a time of 2 minutes 3, which is about 25 to 30 seconds slower than my best ever sprint time on Puyo Puyo Tetris, but only about 5 to 6 seconds slower than my best sprint time on Tetris Effect on the PS4, which I've only ever played on a bigger screen. So this is also why I'm visually impaired. So for me, having it handheld is just the best place for Tetris Effect, for any Tetris game, having it handheld. And I've been I've been through the journey mode, given once through A's and S's where that is on ranks. I've played all the various side modes already and got my starting base scores on there, and I'll go back through each of those individually and improve a little bit of the online stuff, cross-play between Switch and PC, and also a cross-play between Switch and Xbox. You wouldn't know you was playing someone on a different system. It's all very seamless, works online perfectly. The only issue I've got is when you go into the zone mode in Journey, it gets too bright for me. So I can't work out where I'm putting certain pieces, which then in turn means I'm not getting the best scores in the zone bonus, which means I can't, as it stands, cannot go for the double S ranks on journey mode properly. So I'd like an option in there to be able to completely turn off zone mode effects, so it doesn't have any of those really bright lighted effects, just on an accessibility point of view. But I know in that I am probably a very niche audience for that side of it, because it doesn't bother me in a way because I'm still playing the hell out of it and I don't care, but it would be nice to have that accessibility options. It's got all the other accessibility options in there, so you can zoom in and out of the play field with the left stick, which is really good. You can tilt it, which is really weird because I know somebody who plays it and they tilt their play field a bit, and it really helps them see where things are going. Even though it's not 3D, it just really helps them understand it a bit better. Don't know why, but it does. That's in there. You can lock accidental diagonal presses so you don't accidentally do hard drops and stuff like that. Got all those in there, but just that being able to turn off some of the effects would be nice. But aside from that, Game of the Year, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021.
Yeah, every year that there is, really. And I don't think that you're wrong to complain about that at all, about that accessibility, because until you start representing for the minority, they can never be introduced into a particular, aspect of life and fun.
Yeah,
that's there, and it's visibility, isn't it? It kind of like you're like, oh well, okay, so the number of people playing the game who have this visual impairment might be really low, and therefore you're catering to a small audience. But the thing is like they might be your primary audience. You don't know because you've never put it in there. So you put it in.
I am their primary audience, so
Well, exactly. Yeah. So so it's so important. It's so important to get that stuff in there, and I think you have to be a bit of a moron to go, oh well, if it doesn't affect me, then I don't care. Yeah. You should be caring about these things because it's that rising tide raises all ships kind of thing. Everyone benefits because once you've got that visibility of doing something for everybody, then you start spotting problems in the way that you're presenting your game, and you improve them, and everybody wins.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, if they want to get someone who can help them do that as well, I'm going to shout out. I was hoping to play this game on the Switch by now and talk about it, but hopefully maybe next week that'll be done and I'll get my code for it. But you've played Ecstasy, I believe, Stu?
No, I've not yet.
No, you've not played it. I've played it. No, Mixolumi is the one you've played.
I have,
yeah. That's brilliant. So Jim, who's the creator of Ecstasy, is doing a Switch version of it, but he's also in that time been working out a way to make Ecstasy accessible for those without vision. Not just visually impaired, without vision.
Right, yeah.
So if he nails that with Ecstasy, then I'd love to see someone like Enhance get him on board to go, right, make that work with Tetris.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, because Ecstasy is almost Tetris Effect if you took Tetris and actually made it mix with Lumines, with all the beats, the music and everything that goes with it.
Yeah. I had a play of a song. Well, no, it was just like a test track using my Sony headphones that uses their 3D audio.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely phenomenal. And unfortunately, you have to buy into certain ecosystems to be able to hear stuff in that. But it worked so well. You really felt that it was like full 360 audio in your headphones, and it's like you could entirely and without any problem create a game based around that, because of that precision and specificity, and you could completely lock it in with the analog sticks. You could map it that well. So there's a huge field there. There really is, and the sorts of games that I would play, with no current visual impairments. I'm short-sighted, but I would seek them out to play as well. But yeah, they would be incredible for people with sight issues. And it's all there. It's all there in the future. I reckon it's going to happen.
Yeah, I reckon. I mean, I would turn around and go, what can Tetris actually even do next? But, over the past half a decade, we've gone from mixing it with Puyo Puyo to making a battle royale to a game that is just pure spiritual joy.
Yeah.
And such is my love for Tetris. I completely forgot to do my comedic intro, so I'm gonna go through what my intro to this was gonna be.
Please do.
So I was gonna intro and go, I've been playing a game that I started. I got my Switch, put my headphones on, plugged my headphones in, started the game, and next thing I knew, I'd woke up in a Turkish prison with a big guy called Hakan with his arms wrapped around me. I do not know what happened in that time. All I know is I was spiritually taken away by Tetris and woke up in a Turkish prison.
Very good.
because you lose yourself. You absolutely, time goes away when you play Tetris. And people who know me know how much I love the game. People who don't know me probably get an idea of how much I love that game from the start to now, all versions of it, apart from the crappy Ubisoft version. Because not just because it's Ubisoft, just because they somehow broke Tetris and made Tetris that had lag. Yeah.
Jeez. Very cool. So yes, it's one that's on my list. I'll definitely be getting it, and it'll probably be directly after Prime. Prime? What am I on about? Dread.
I also think you've got the only version that I don't own, which is the Oculus version, I want to say.
Yes, yeah, the Steam version's got the VR ability.
So, so I can do VR if I do get a VR headset, but I think I got originally a code for the Oculus and I went, I can't do that, and I think I gave that to you.
Yeah.
But it's, that's the only version I don't own of Tetris Effect.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll be pleased to hear that it's a Steam version. You don't have to be on the Oculus store to play it. So, yeah, because nobody wants to get into the Facebook ecosystem, let's face it. No,
Tetris, I'm just looking at my library now. Tetris Effect connected, VR supported. So at some point, I'll get back into VR with Tetris.
Awesome.
And never leave.
Why would you?
Definitely. Right, no fancy transition to the next subject. So I'm going to hand over to you because for me, I've got little experience with this, and I'll chime in a couple of times. And I suppose we're going to talk a bit about cancer, which will have a bit of a trigger warning around it, I suppose. So, but yeah, I'm going to hand over to you. We talk, unfortunately, about a serious, but I think much needed to talk about thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, like any topic of such seriousness, it impacts your mental health, and there's been 2 huge ones this year that impacting. So one was indirect in a way, still direct, and one was very direct. So yeah, my father-in-law had cancer, which I think I've mentioned on the podcast, and luckily, very fortunately, it's been well treated, and it looks like it's gone away. And obviously with cancer it has to be a check every while, but that's good. But more recently my cousin got diagnosed with cancer, and that sounds like it's he's very, very ill, and none of this is news to most people. It's one of those things that you kind of, as you go through life, you brush up against it because it's so prevalent, and the survival rates and the treatments are so much better than they used to be, which is, really, really good. But there's that horrible thing of it still feels like a living death sentence sometimes.
Yeah.
Even though it isn't these days. But, there's that instinctual fear of it and that horror of your body taking against you and destroying yourself from the inside, and it's just a horrible thing to contemplate. And my wife had to go through the whole thing of, once they had the discovery of, kind of going part way down the road of grief, because I don't think it's possible to hear a diagnosis of cancer, no matter what it is, which stage, where it's presenting, which organs are affected, whether it's got lymph node involvement, whether it's metastasized. I don't think you can hear any of it without kind of being immediately concerned for that person's life. And that's a really strange thing to do, we kind of know so much about it and so little at the same time. It takes us down this road of starting off the grieving process in a way, and my wife was inconsolable for several days to a week, even with the diagnosis. In fact, after the diagnosis and before it was kind of cleared up, she was okay. She was dealing with it and upset, but okay. And then when it was revealed that her dad was okay, that's when she sort of broke down, and she was just crying non-stop for about 3 days. And it's because, she started down that road of grief, and it sort of happened to me in a way with with the news about my cousin, and of course, if any of their family are listening to this, it's highly unlikely, but it's not meant to imply that you've written somebody off, but you emotionally, you just start that process, and there's nothing that you can do about it. In my opinion, it's not a kind of logical, factual based thing where you can wrap your hands around it and go, no, I'm not going to have these feelings or thoughts. It's just something that's kicking in your subconscious and running through it and running with it. And I've had serious grief in my life in the past, and I know how it feels, and it's definitely the same route. It's definitely on the same track. There are very few emotions in life that have their own, well, almost like taste and smell, and love is one of them, and hate to a certain degree, and joy and things like this. But grief has its own distinct feeling, and there are parts of it in there, so you're kind of going through this grieving process even though they are still alive and may be completely fine. And that's really, really hard. And part of it is the feelings that you have for their direct family and how they're involved, and you feel how much they must be getting crushed by these feelings as well, and the empathy that you have for them is just immense.
Yeah,
because the pain they must be going through, or you can get like a shadow, like or a reflection of it, so that you get this rough idea of the size and the shape of what they're feeling. And it's a hideous thing, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's always, unlike the ailments that people get, whether it's heart disease or whether it's COVID, it's not the same. It's a completely different thing on its own, and very, very difficult to incorporate into your life without it making a big change to it. And so it's been very hard. I mean, I think it wouldn't be so hard if we weren't going through such a difficult time at the moment with everything in this country that's going on in the UK, which is particularly rough at the moment. But even without that, very, very difficult. And it's definitely one of those things that it does feel better to be able to talk about with people.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I say I've not had loads of experience with cancer, thankfully. I've had some with family members. My partner's father died of cancer, and that was horrible. Trying to be there for her and feeling useless at times with it. And when my nan passed away or got cancer, I was fine for the most part. It's like my nan, she's a fighter. She'd had breast cancer previously. She had a different cancer where they ended up having to lose her nose. She'd made jokes of it and stuff like that as well. And was all fine with it because my nan will fight. She'll be my nan and stuff like that. Until the one day I called her about 2 days before she passed away, and I called her up and said, like, "Hi Nan, how are you?" She didn't know who I was. A confusion had hit, and she didn't have a clue who I was.
Yeah,
and told me to get off the phone because she was waiting for a phone call from her grandson, which was me. And I was like, "No, it is me now." She went, No, I'm waiting for my grandson." And like that really hit me. I got really upset that time. And then not again until the day of her funeral and stuff like that. But what I tend to find as well, when you have that, you're speaking about the different flavours almost that different feelings have. Like love is one of them, and that's when you're in love, you don't want to lose that feeling. When you suffer with grief, you want nothing more. You try to fight grief away. And then when you have those moments where you are free of grief, even if it's only a short moment, guilt comes into it. Then that's when guilt really does come into it, and then you grieve all over again because you can't show that feeling of I'm wrong to be happy or laugh at something and things like that. So it's with something like cancer, it's not just so like X person has died and then you grieve. You're actually grieving on and off, possibly for months if not years, and it is such a horrible one to deal with. And with other situations where you're in limbo with it, where you just don't know which way it's going to go, And so you feel useless in what you can actually say to somebody at the same time.
Yeah, you do. You do. Yeah, there's no words for it, really. You know, it can't be contained or contextualized properly. You know, it's kind of like it's like love. It's a different state of mind. You know, grief is. It's like it colours everything else, and all of your reactions to it. And you know, some of them not just in negative ways. Some of them, you know, can bring positives about as well. And I think, you know, people don't like to hear that kind of thing because it doesn't fit with the way that they narrate their lives sometimes. And yeah, it's definitely there though. You know, there are feelings of relief when people pass away, and that strain is no longer there for people. You know, these things are part of human life, and it's always better to acknowledge them than it is not. And I think, you know, talking through grief is very important. But it's very notable that the charities that deal with grief, they most of them don't start dealing with loss as a component of grief until around a year after the loss itself. And that's because of the brain chemistry change. It's because of what changes, and the fact that you are not making decisions or operating in a way that you would normally, and you're not reacting to things out of, you know, sadness, you know, unhappiness, fear, depression, any of those things. You're acting out of grief.
Yeah.
And grief is a different state of mind, and they want to check that you are not in that state before they can deal with the loss and how you should recreate a new life out of it. And that really just speaks to how big a deal it is, and how important it is to talk, you know, to people about it when you're going through it. And I think, you know, I always extol the virtues of talking about stuff, but I mean, being honest about how you feel. So saying when you feel relieved, or saying when you feel happy, or saying how it impacts you, when obviously, you know, the focus is most often on the person who's ill. So yeah, it's just having that wider conversation to make sure that all the people in the person's life who is directly impacted or can get through it as well. And that's not me doing a woe is me kind of a thing. I'm the one impacted here. But it is recognising that more people get hurt than you could really recognise or possibly imagine without being through it. So yeah, I mean, I could ramble on for a long time, but yeah.
No, and without going into any detail whatsoever, you know, we're seeing at the moment the impact it has on people surrounding the actual person who's suffering. You know, again, from the mental health point of view, is if you're someone, if you know someone who's going through it, just in any way, shape or form, be there. It hasn't got to be... You haven't got to offer advice or anything like that. Sometimes, again, it's almost cliche, just being an ear or a vacuum or a space for someone to rant into, scream at if they need to. You know that anything they say is not meant at you. It's not directed at you. It's like they need a place. Just be there for them. Be that vacuum for them to be able to scream into or shout at. And if they then turn around and go, actually, can you help me with this, or can you do this for me? If you can be there, offer what you can. But it's again, as I said, you said before, Stu, with the Samaritans, they will take almost anything that's thrown at them, which I think is an amazing service that's done. But again, I know people still don't feel comfortable going to the Samaritans, and they would rather speak to a friend but feel uncomfortable launching upon them like that. So if you feel that you are almost strong enough to be able to take it, just let people know, or even steer a conversation that way without saying to someone outright, oh, I need you to tell me about this. But you will pick up the signs. It's a tough one to explain in a way, but you will pick up the signs, and you can just be there for people. And as cliche as that is the most important thing.
Yes, it absolutely is. Yeah, people know the practical side of what to do, and in fact, everybody will know from their own experience. But when bad things are happening, it's often the kind of mundane humdrum, gotta fill in this form thing that is actually okay because it takes you away.
Yeah.
It gives you a purpose. So people are often fine with that, and what they're lacking is the actual conversation side of things. Or like you say, just knowing that people are there and available for that conversation.
Yeah.
Or if you need to ask them for something practical as assistance, like a lift or, some shopping done. I mean, just having that ability to people to run around for you, and that they have no issue with that. Just having that in the background is a great thing, but you'll never know that unless you have that connection with them. So talking is vastly important.
Yeah, and I don't want to use this as an excuse to plug what we have or anything like that, because it feels a bit crass to do so. But I have found it with the use of like our Discord server that we've got has been wonderful for me in the past. And again, we are seeing sort of like people use it where they need to. Again, just as a place to almost speak into a mirror in a way, just at least see what they're saying. I think having that ability to write it down as well allows you to see, again, what you're putting. So, again, services that are out there that aren't also always immediately obvious. Communities are part of it, all worthwhile. People will pull themselves together for you and help exactly where they can. So if you feel shut off because you can't speak to people in real life, I hate that term, actually, splitting it into real life. We'll go about that another day. Use online. It's not as dangerous as what it was always made out to be. People are there and they will listen. Sometimes a stranger or a relative stranger can be the best person to have to talk to.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I completely agree, because you can have a combination of having passionate care about somebody but being dispassionate about what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Because you're close enough to care about them, just in a kind of general sense, but you're not so close that it's also hurting you to the point where you can't be active.
Yeah.
And I think that it's almost like a liminal space of people. It's like, it's not the people who are directly around you and therefore could either get used up too much or too quickly, or people who are too far away and don't give a monkeys. It's that right level of distance. It's like a community, like an old-fashioned, village or town, when people, were part of that community. And that online community side of things is really beneficial for that. So, people should definitely use it.
Yeah, and you have people that are spread around as well. So, me and Lorraine have discussed it, sort of like if anyone needed help and they were sort of like up towards the north or anything like that, isn't so much as, we can be there in an instant to do it. But if they found something they needed, for example, I don't know, say they needed something as silly as they've seen some clothing they really like, but it's down south, but it'll make them feel better. We can pick it up for them and send it and stuff like that, because you've got people around the country who will be willing to help out. And again, I know that's probably the most basic version of it, but I couldn't think without making it sound sort of like too over the top or sort of like too specific. But, anything like that, people will help.
Yes, absolutely. It's one of the best things about, a distributed community, and it's something it's not new to the world, but it's certainly a hell of a lot easier since the internet, and a definite real upside to it. So I can't praise that side of things enough. That the things we've seen recently with other people in our circle who have had issues with cancer in their lives, and the incredibly positive response and helpful response, by being supportive but also being practical, has been wonderful, and should never be diminished. No,
100%. So I don't want to finish on that. I don't want to dismiss that whole chat either. So I sorry if this is a bit of a harsh cutaway, but like to, where possible, end on something a bit more positive. And what's more positive than COVID?
Of course.
Yes. So I wasn't going to talk about this at all, but it's like it happened in the last day or two. But my household has COVID. There's 4 of us and 3 of us have COVID. I'm the only one that's negative at the moment, so we've got the whole family's having to rely on the blind one to go and do stuff. It's really... Lorraine's got COVID. Well, we first found out Lucas had COVID. He done a test because a friend at school had it, and he took the test and he got it. Edith looked like she had a cold, so we tested her. She's got it. Lo done a test. She's got it. I'm negative. And it's one of the things that's really weird and that I've noticed is, considering it's meant to be over, some people would have you believe, I'm seeing a lot more cases now than I was the previous 18 months in my own personal circles.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
The schools are rife. The schools are absolutely rife with it. And I honestly think the reason the numbers are supposedly down on terms of cases, I think because there's a lot of people not testing like they was before as well.
Yeah.
I've been guilty of it, not testing as much. Because, again, as much as I know it's not over, you kind of keep getting that impression of, it's not as important now. It's not. You do fall for it, even as someone who is cynical about it all. But yeah, just to point out, I had to go shopping yesterday to get some food in for a few days. So I hope the family are eating dried cat food and melted marshmallows.
Ooh,
because
nice.
I thought that was I thought that was cereal.
Lovely.
No, but I had to do the shopping, and I managed to lose my glasses while I was shopping. I was having to keep calling Lorraine every 5 minutes to go, is this the thing we want? Because I can't actually read what the labels are. I think it's to do with the lighting in supermarkets. It's only really bad when I go into like Tesco's or Asda or something like that. The lighting makes my vision go worse.
Yeah.
So you think they'd want you to have better vision and have better lighting for that, so you actually want to buy the stuff.
I know, it's hideous.
But yeah, it seems to really, really affect me. But yeah, we've got COVID in the... Well, they're locked down for going to look like at least another 10 days after the results come back, unless anything go negative. And touch wood, as it stands at the moment, I'm negative, but still blind. So COVID probably popped in here, had a look and gone, yeah, he's suffering enough, mate. Let's we'll leave him be.
If only life was that kind.
Yeah,
I am very glad. I'm very glad you haven't got it.
Yeah, no. But double vaccinated as well. Both me and Lo both got it. Lucas was going to get his vaccination next month, so he's now got to wait because you can't get. Yeah, you got to wait 90 days after being clear before you can get the vaccine.
Yeah.
So he wanted it, but he's now got to wait. So okay, you win, anti-vaxxers. You win.
No, God damn it! I'll never win.
No, but it's like sort of like going like. Obviously, I know you're always at risk anyway, even if you are vaccinated. It's the same, you can get the flu after flu jabs, possibly. You know, it's not a total.
Yeah.
But I've seen other people who have, like, obviously they've been double vaccinated and they've got it, and then you see a sort of like the anti-vaxxers going, see, it's pointless, it's useless. It's not.
No.
It's not, because it would be a lot worse. I dare say, sort of like, if me or Lorraine got it at the moment and we wasn't vaccinated, there could well be hospital involved.
Yeah. Definitely.
Get vaccinated, people.
Yep.
Get vaccinated, because then you can sit at home and play Tetris.
Yeah, and as we described, it's just the best thing. It's the best thing ever, and probably always will be.
Yes. And again, to prove time isn't linear, the last 18 months have taken place over what feels like about 10 years. So there you go.
I know.
Your witness.
Bizarre. Yeah, but I won't do a long outro this week. So, yeah, if any of these things have affected you, go on to the Discord to chat if you like. That will hopefully help for you. And, we're everywhere. We're all on the socials. Just look us up there. And in the meantime, have a good week. Stay safe and stay sane.